It's been no secret that Frontier has developed quite a reputation as of late.
How is that the answer?
How is this?
We are busy.
After years of observing, I finally had the opportunity to fly on board the Airbus A321 from Orlando to New Orleans. Is Frontier really that bad? Today, we're going to be breaking this down, and you're coming along for the journey. So let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Welcome everybody to the Orlando International Airport. My day has been quite an adventure thus far, so let me catch you up to speed. First, I arrived at Orlando International Airport at 11:30 a.m. on board a Spirit Airlines flight. Check out that trip report if you missed it. I planned a 4-hour layover here in case the inbound flight was behind, but luckily it was not. I planned so much additional time as well in case of thunderstorms developed in the Orlando area, and sure enough they did. This had a significant impact on our Frontier Airlines flight today. Our aircraft is coming in from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and due to the thunderstorms, our flight has been delayed over 3 hours. With all this extra time, I decided to do some additional plane spotting and develop a backup plan if I wasn't able to make it home tonight. Check out my video on this layover if you missed it for more information. After a substantial delay, our aircraft has arrived. Docked up here at gate 16 is November 701 Foxtrot Romeo, a 7-year-old Frontier Airlines Airbus A321. This aircraft has Otto the Owl on the tail, but will the animals be the best part of Frontier? Let's go ahead and find out, everybody. Unfortunately, we're not off to a very hot start. I saw some very rude ticket agents throughout the Frontier gates, but especially at mine. These ticket agents were heavily enforcing the carry-on bag policy and showing a negative connotations towards any questions from passengers. However, this wasn't surprising after watching dozens of videos online of rude ticket agents from Frontier. Delays can be frustrating, but that's no excuse of how Frontier has handled many of their passengers. My best advice is to ensure that your personal item fits the dimensions showed here, and the same advice applies if you purchased a carry-on bag. We're already delayed and need to start boarding though, so we'll talk about all you need to know in the air. With this established, let's go ahead and get on board, everybody. Since we are so behind, we gotta go ahead and push back, everybody, so be sure to look up for the full pushback videos that'll be coming out very soon. Let's taxi out to our departure runway 36 right, everybody.
I was talking with you guys. They said 5 minutes originally, should be about a 10-minute delay now before we depart. There's a bunch of airplanes up in the air holding, waiting to come in. And once they've got the airspace sorted out, we'll get you on your way to your...
Said no one ever, as that only ended up being a 3-minute delay, everybody. So let's go ahead and take off on runway 36 right. I really hope you all enjoyed this takeoff, as it was absolutely fantastic. That was quite a masterpiece to say the least. Now we can climb up to our cruising altitude of 32,000 feet, everybody. Alrighty everybody, the moment you've been waiting for, the Frontier assessment. Let's go ahead and get into all you need to know about the seats, the add-on fees, the prices, and just really all that you need to know here about Frontier. But first and foremost, I would like to say this ended up being a really enjoyable experience because obviously Frontier doesn't have Wi-Fi, and I do have a connection coming up that I'll talk about here in a moment, so I didn't have to worry about whether I was going to make it or not. It was going to be what it was going to be due to the layover time and so on, so it was really nice to just get to sit back and relax and enjoy this experience. So let's go ahead and get started about all you need to know here about Frontier's products. So let's begin with the seats. So these are of course your bare bones seats. I believe this is the first time on my channel we're taking a look at seats like this. They are as basic as it gets, limited lower back padding. You know, you got the legroom that you would expect here for a seat like this. And honestly, for these seats, don't get me wrong, they're not great, but honestly, I was able to manage, and I have sat in these seats several times on a variety of route lengths, and I can say that it gets the job done, especially for the price that I paid. You know, I can't expect much more than this. So I would understand if any of you have, you know, lower back padding or another complication that would make sitting in seats like this really just not optimal. But you know, for a couple hours, it's definitely manageable. I wouldn't recommend a flight over that length of time, but if you could need a seat for just a couple hours there just to get by and you get a really good price, it certainly gets the job done. So that's my thought on these bare bones seats. What I will say though is that the tray tables, I'm kind of interested that they even decide to have one when you can barely get a drink on it. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know if it's a requirement or not, but these are as basic as it gets for the tray tables. So pretty interesting, but luckily some newer products have been integrating bigger tray tables. So that's certainly exciting to see. Here's the lavatory. It's normal for an Airbus, so no major changes here. However, on this particular day, on this A321, there were some open seats due to, I don't know if it was just because it was Monday or what exactly it was, but there were some empty seats on this particular flight. So I was able to bounce around the cabin a little bit and check out some different views, which were really nice. So definitely it was really cool to see that as well. Now let's get into the prices here for Frontier. So I talked about this briefly in previous videos, but we'll go ahead and give you the full assessment right here. So I'll divide it up into three categories. You have the, you know, your essential functions, I should say, the base fare, seat selection, and the bags. So let's go ahead and get started with the best one. That's going to be your base fare. Frontier base fares are some of the lowest in the United States, if not the lowest. You can find several routes where they're offering tickets as low as $19, which I have took advantage of a couple times, and I'll be sharing a video on that here in the future. But you know, there's some other routes where you could get closer to $150. It just depends on where you're going, the length of the flight, and so on. So I do give Frontier S tier in this regard because their base fare is fantastic, and then it's really nice that they give the passengers their opportunity to add on what they would like to. Speaking of which, the next tier is going to be your seat selections. I'm going to give this a C. It's average. It's not great. You could get a window seat for around $20 on most flights. However, it's not surprising to see seats in the front selling closer to $45, and then their extra legroom seats, which are the only ones with any sort of additional changes compared to their normal seats, those are closer to $70 usually, which I think is really high and definitely why this is closer to C. But it is cool that they offer those extra legroom seats, and who knows, maybe there'll be a better deal on one sometime in the future that we can take advantage of. But anyway, I give it a C. It's a little high, but you know, it could be worse for sure. I've seen worse airlines in regards to the prices on the seats. And then the bags, I give this just a complete F. This is where you get scammed on Frontier. A carry-on bag typically is about $60, and I think I've seen checked bags closer to $65, $70. Absolutely terrible. It's industry leading with regards to how high these bag prices are, considering that airlines will give you these free and economy tickets. It's just crazy to see that Frontier charges this much for them. This is definitely where they make their revenue. So this gives us the question, is it really worth flying Frontier? And in my eyes, with the customer service and all the other, you know, inconsistencies that they have, you know, all the delays that Frontier can go on, and so many other circumstances that we can get into a massive video about, which we might have to do sometime. But anyways, for the sake of whether you should or not, I think it solely depends on the type of traveler. How flexible are you? What your plans look like? Are you willing to be patient? And so on. If you have all day to get there, if you're taking an early morning flight, if you really don't mind about the seats, if you don't have a bag, Frontier might be your best option, because if you can get a $19 base fare and don't need to pay for a seat and don't need to pay for a bag, you can't really beat that. Now, it is worth noting that there are several routes that Southwest Airlines does overlap on Frontier, and maybe Southwest might be a better option for you. If you need a bag, if you want a select seat for sure, if you want some additional flexibility in your fares, you know, all those matrix may make it worth Southwest for you. And you know, we did do the Spirit video previously, and you did see what kind of products Spirit can offer, and then also their bundle deals, which are really reasonable relative to Frontier's. I mean, they try to sell you, I think the lowest one typically is like $110, and that's just a bag and a seat selection usually. So I mean, you certainly can get way down the drain on prices with Frontier. So I think it solely depends upon the passenger. I will say though, if you are going to fly Frontier, you definitely need to know what you're getting yourself into with fees, and make sure that you for sure know your bag accommodations, because they will charge excessive money for that at the airport and so on. I believe that they charge nearly $100 for a bag last minute at the airport if you are going to bring one on board, which is really crazy, but this is why you have to know what you're doing. So, however, at the same time though, if you know about all this, AS Aviation did a really good video here showing how he brought his drawstring bag on his trip. So definitely really cool to see that, you can get the information that you need to make a good decision. But again, it all depends upon the travelers. So definitely keep that in mind as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the day here as well. I definitely want to note this. So here's what we got going on. So of course I took Spirit into Orlando, as I mentioned previously. Now we're on this Frontier flight, and then my Southwest flight, if you remember seeing the video in the for the Orlando Did I Make My Connection video, you're going to remember in that video that I was talking about making the connection in New Orleans, which our plane did get delayed as I took off. So luckily, I thought that we had a chance to make it. But again, I didn't have Wi-Fi on this flight, so I don't know what our status is. So I'll give you a little hint at the end, and then you'll have to wait until the next video there in that series, Did I Make My Connection at New Orleans, to see whether we made it or not. So looking very forward to that. The last metric I wanted to mention here about this flight was the Orlando to New Orleans route. Frontier is currently not serving it right now, which is kind of interesting. So you're currently going to find Southwest, Breeze, and Spirit on it. I think Spirit operates it 4 or 5 times a day, and Southwest same, and then Breeze operates it twice a week. So definitely cool to see that, and we'll see if Frontier does choose to return on this market soon. I think it's a good one for them, but Frontier's definitely been really pivoting their strategy here for their network. So we'll see what happens, but they do have over 160 new routes to take advantage of. So that's certainly going to be the case right there. So definitely Frontier's got pros, they got cons, but if you know what you're doing, I definitely think it's worth it. And overall, would I recommend Frontier? If you're a flexible traveler, if you have all day to get where you need to be, if you're patient, and if you know what you're getting yourself into, yes, I think Frontier can definitely be a fit for many travelers, especially on a budget. So with all this established, let's go ahead and begin our descent into New Orleans. I really hope all of you enjoy this, and let's go ahead and get into it. Alrighty, everybody, so let's begin our descent and landing here into New Orleans International Airport for the very first time. This is going to be relatively simple, as we're going to fly right into our base and then make a steep right-hand bank on our approach here into New Orleans. So let's go ahead and get into the full summary, as we're going to be landing on runway 2 here today. So as for Frontier, as I mentioned previously, they're a solid airline for what they are. They have some of the best base fares in the United States, but then you are going to definitely get added on there for your seat selections and bags and other such amenities there, like priority boarding, pet fees, and so on. Now, Frontier, they've obviously had quite an interesting history over time, especially in the last 10 years, from going from, being even more reliable then to what they are now, which is less of that. Now, don't get me wrong, Frontier definitely serves their purpose, and I think that they have really helped out so many people get to where they need to go on a budget. But would I recommend them? I mean, it's definitely lower on my list. I think most people would agree on that. You just got to be very aware of what you're getting yourself into, especially with these bag fees, because if you're not careful, you're going to be paying $100 for the bag, which could be 5 times as much as your base fare. So what looks like $20 could turn into $200 really quick, and I think that's really where you got to draw the line with Frontier. If you know what you're doing, if you know all of these procedures and exactly how Frontier operates, I think that you're going to be in good shape. You just have to know it. And again, AS Aviation did a really good video on Frontier. Jeb Brooks did a really great assessment in his low-cost comparison, and so on. So definitely utilize your resources, find out these exact policies, know the size of your carry-on bag, and just be patient. I think that you're going to be in good shape, and try to avoid asking a question to a gate agent if they don't look like they're willing to help. So is it perfect? Absolutely not, but can it suit your needs? It definitely could. So the seats are fine. It gets the job done, and especially if you're looking to fly Frontier with limited bags on a short flight early in the day, I think you're definitely going to be fine. You saw what happened to me here, since obviously it was in Florida in May later in the day. I'll take all responsibility for that, but luckily I did integrate enough time, and we will see if it ends up paying off here. So I really hope all of you enjoyed this. Let's go ahead and land on runway 2 here at New Orleans International Airport. I really hope all of you enjoy this, and let's go check out that new terminal, guys. everybody to New Orleans International Airport. We have a relatively short taxi over to the A gates today, so let's go ahead and taxi on over there, but I have just checked my phone and realized that Southwest has delayed the flight another 10 minutes, which we'll see if that ends up coming in clutch. So let's go ahead and see if we can go over there, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching this trip report on this Frontier Airbus A321 from Orlando to New Orleans. Be sure to stay on the lookout for all the in-flight videos coming from this leg of the trip. The Did I Make My Connection video here at New Orleans, because who knows if we're going to make that Southwest flight or not, and all the other videos to come from this trip. I've had a really fun time making all these videos. It's certainly been a very unique video series here on the channel, and I really hope all of you have enjoyed this with 3 different carriers in one day and all these different flights, but we'll have to go see if we can go make that Southwest flight. So with all that being said, everybody, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. My name is Redriveraviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Trust the process. Do you love and love you do. My name is Redriveraviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as Redriveraviation is signing off.